What do you know, we're in the real-life All-Star break, and we have made it to the 2023 All-Star break in the Giants franchise, so let's hop straight into going over who the All-Stars are in the 2023 season. On the National League side of things, our entire starting rotation was absolutely snubbed. And I'm not just saying that as someone who is literally playing as the Giants. I mean, they were absolutely snubbed. You can't tell me that anybody in my rotation should not be in the All-Star game. Derek Rodriguez and Dylan Bundy have been the ERA leaders for the majority of the season, and they are not in the All-Star game. Groom, Skaggs, and Ray have also been exceptional all season long, but it is worth noting that the Padres' 1, 2, 3 starters all made the All-Star game. They're a big reason why they've been so good this year. Reyes Moranza made it as a closer. Joey Bart is the starting catcher. Joey Gallo is the starting first baseman because I never changed his main position to third base because I didn't want to lose his second positions, what they are right now, because you can't actually have somebody as a third baseman and outfielder as their second position. Well, Jairo Munoz is the second base starter, Ronald Butler the left field starter, and Manny Margot is starting in center field. On the American League side of things, look at Shelby Miller. Back to being all-star Shelby Miller in the starting rotation. The Astros pretty much dominated the infield with CJ Cron as the starting first baseman, Jose Altuve at second, and Alex Bregman at third base. And then the Baltimore Orioles actually had 2 players make the All-Star game. They did not just have one representative. The Toronto Blue Jays are in that same boat. The Orioles had their closer Michael Fuentes and their second baseman Stevie Wilkerson make the game, while the Blue Jays had their closer Bill Cooley and their third baseman something Diaz. It's a Y name, Diaz. And then also Tyler Austin, former Giant, makes it as the Rays' first baseman. So now moving on to the standings around the league, starting things off in the NL East. As always, the Nationals have a pretty big league for first place in the NL East. Braves 8 games back, Phillies 10 games back, and the Mets are 12 games back. And it's just hilarious to me that the Mets go out in this game and they have spent a crapload of money in free agency. They have picked up Mookie Betts, they have picked up Jose Ramirez, Mitch Haniger is their 4th outfielder, Teoscar Hernandez is a stud for them in left field. Jeff McNeil's been insane throughout the duration of this franchise. They still have DeGrom in their rotation. Edwin Diaz is not bad in this universe, and yet still, they can't win games. They can't make the playoffs with all these players. And it's just incredible to me that, like, one of the main things why the Mets can't compete in real life is because their owners are who their owners are, and they just won't dish out any money, and when they do, they're like, hey, let's give way too much money to a 34-year-old mediocre free agent. But in this, they're actually paying for good players, and they still can't win. It's just funny to me. And then in the National League Central, that division is not quite the slaughterhouse that it was for the first few seasons of this franchise. The Brewers have a pretty commanding lead on the Reds with a 6-game lead, and then the Pirates are 8.5 games back, while the Cubs and the Cardinals are both just plain bad. So Aaron Judge goes to the Cubs, and they just shit the bed and they stink. And then we are currently still on the top of the National League West with a measly 1-game lead over the Padres. The division is really shaping up to really go down to the wire, while the Rockies and the Dodgers, not quite in the division race, but they are still very much in the wild card race, where the wild card is Padres and Braves as the 1-2 teams right now. But there are legit like 7 to 8 teams that still have a chance at making the wild card. Both the Rockies and the Dodgers are only 1 game back from being in it. The Phillies are 2 games back, the Reds are 3.5, the Mets are 4.5, and the Pirates are only 6 games back. So lots of teams still in that wild card race in the National League. While moving on to the American League, the Yankees are still a very good team without Aaron Judge, Gary Sanchez, and Chad Green, who they all lost in this offseason. And the Yankees are tied for first place with the Red Sox, so very tight race going up there at the top of the division, while no one else is really in that division. The Rays kind of having an off year, while the Blue Jays and Orioles, of course, are still bad. And the real interesting part about the American League is the AL Central finally has a different leader! The White Sox are sitting atop the AL Central in first place. The Tigers 2.5 games back. The Twins, who picked up Gary Sanchez and Chad Green in this offseason, are 8 games back, so those players are not helping them win this division. And then the Indians are 8.5 games back, so not only are they not leading the division, they're not even really in the race. And then the American League West is the Astros at the top of that division with a pretty decent lead. The Athletics are still in it, but the Mariners, Angels, and Rangers not so much, especially the Rangers. The Angels, they had the best record in the American League last season and of course won the World Series over us, and they're not really too close to being a wild card team either, where the wild card in the American League is not really as tight as it is in the National League. So Angels looking like they might miss the playoffs after winning the World Series last year. And now moving on to our players' stats, starting off with the hitters as usual. The number one guy, Jock Peterson, is still being Jock Peterson. A 929 OPS, 21 home runs on the season. The only thing about him, though, mentioning that's kind of odd and not good, is that he doesn't hit doubles anymore. He really just hits home runs and singles, it seems, because he only has 9 doubles on the year, all season long, and then last season, through an entire 162-game season, obviously didn't play in every single one of them, but he played in the majority of them, he only hit 10 doubles. So, really not sure what's going on there. But then we have Joey Bart, who legitimately might be the best catcher in the National League. He has an 896 OPS, 15 home runs, having an incredible season behind the plate for us. We have him locked up through 2027 for only $5.8 million a year as well, so Joey Bart, definitely a solid player for us, more than solid. Elliot Ramos, who was absolutely tearing up the league with an OPS above 1,000 for a while, has been slumping a bit as of late heading into this All-Star break. Still a very solid 876 OPS, it's just not the 1,000 OPS that it was, and I'm sure he'll pick it back up, and he'll be totally fine in the second half, and this is just a little slump that he's having, so nothing to really worry about with Elliot Ramos, while Manny Margot has pretty much been everything as advertised. 871 OPS, 16 home runs, he's been incredible in center field. Joey Gallo, he got off to a pretty slow start to the season, and he's coming off a bad year with the Texas Rangers, so that slow start to the season, I started having some, oh no, this might be a bad signing. Some of those thoughts kind of crept into my mind, but he's been insane the past month or so 860 OPS now, 22 home runs, he leads the team in homers, not Jock Peterson, so Joey Gallo, nothing to worry about with him. And then Javi Baez, El Mago, 851 OPS, 18 home runs at the All-Star break. Much better numbers at the break than he had last year, so definitely good to see that our star shortstop is actually performing like a star shortstop. And then as far as Peter Mooney goes, I think I've got him figured out. This 5'6" hit machine fella, he starts off every season very slow. I'm talking like there are periods. He pretty much starts off like the first month with like a sub 600 OPS, and then he picks it up to like it's above 600. And then we get to the All-Star break, and he's like, alright, I've got a pretty decent like 775 OPS, it's above league average. But then by season's end, he'll be in the 800s. That's my prediction, that's what happened last year, so I'm just thinking that's what Peter Mooney is. We've got him figured out to a science. While Stuart Fairchild, he got off to a disappointing start and has not really picked it up. He still has a sub 700 OPS, only one, I repeat, one home run in 145 at-bats on the season. He's been the starting left fielder all season long, against left-handed pitching, that is. Obviously, Jock plays against right-handed pitching. So Fairchild been quite disappointing, and I don't want to risk losing him to waivers because he gets out of options, so we'll just have to hope he picks up the second half. And then as far as the guys who really haven't played much in the big leagues, you got Lorenzo Ordonez. He's been pretty underwhelming since being called up, but he only has 44 AB, so you can't really judge anything based on that. Same deal with Sheldon Noisy, who only has 22 ABs. He is working his plate discipline, though, as he has a 357 OBP in those 22 ABs. And then Seth Beer has been very solid since coming up, but only 37 at-bats, so can't really judge any of those guys too much based on their ABs, and we'll see if this continues, gets better, goes down, we'll see what happens as the season goes on. Now moving on to the pitching side of things, where like I said, our rotation has been great this year, and they were all snubbed for the All-Star game. Derek Rodriguez has gotten a bit beat up in his last couple starts, so he is not the #1 ERA in the majors anymore. I believe he's number 3, or the National League, I should say, not the entire major leagues. He still is having a great year, though, so no need to worry about D-Rod. He's just going through a couple of starts where he got rocked. And then Jay Groom has also been really really quite impressive for us. I have no worries about the state of next season's rotation, where Robbie Ray and Tyler Skaggs are going to be leaving, and we're still going to have D-Rod, Jay Grube, and Dylan Bundy. And speaking of Tyler Skaggs, he has had a great season, 3.21 ERA, 3.67 FIP, 99 strikeouts, 106 2/3 innings pitched. Hopefully he continues that for the rest of the season. And Dylan Bundy, I thought last year, before he tore his labrum, was good. He has been even better this year. A sub-3 ERA and FIP, 117 strikeouts through 102 innings pitched. Yet another former Orioles pitcher who got significantly better after leaving the Orioles. And then, of course, the man with a NASCAR driver named Robbie Ray has still been very solid this year. He's just not striking out an absurd amount of batters like he did last year, where he led the National League in strikeouts with like 270-something, I believe. And now taking a look at our bullpen, which, like I said, has been our biggest weakness. It is the #1 point of need heading into the trade deadline this year. And Tanner Scott has gotten the most innings out of all our bullpen guys. He's still striking out a decent amount of batters, or a lot of batters. He's just not putting up a solid ERA and FIP like he did last year for us, where he was an all-star at the break. And Ryan Presley, he's been solid. Nothing special, though. He's been solid, getting the job done. While Jason Tupman has actually been pretty not good. He, not a great ERA and FIP, not striking out anybody, so not what you like to see from a guy who is supposedly going to be a solid reliever for us for the next few years. Then you have Reyes Baranza, who has still been very good for us, still a sub-3 ERA and FIP. He's still striking out a decent amount of batters. He's just not on a 105 Ks and 70 2/3 innings pace like he was last year. And then Raisel Iglesias has actually been, like, bad. Like, not just, like, he's been okay, he's been bad, like straight up bad. A 5 ERA, a high 4 FIP. He's not striking at anybody, and I'm not going to send him down because he's Raisel Iglesias, and I just hope that his overall ratings will take over and he'll be better in the second half, but I mean, yikes. Figure it out, Iglesias. And then Tyler Beede, who's currently our long reliever, has only pitched in 18 2/3 innings. He's got a pretty good ERA, but he has a horrible FIP. He's not striking at anybody. He's walking a lot of people. And then Austin Davis has been actually a solid lefty in our pen in his short time in the big leagues. 18 strikeouts through 16 1/3 innings pitched, 4 ERA, but a 2.51 FIP. So that's very good to see that we have a pretty solid guy that we acquired at the deadline for or not the deadline, but earlier in June for Aaron Altair, along with a guy who could possibly be in our bullpen next season in Yaxel Rios. And now if we take a look around the league in the league leaders, the National League home run leaders are actually two Padres players. Franmil Reyes has the lead with 27, and then in second place is his teammate Hunter Renfroe with 23. Joey Gallo actually has 22 on the season now, so he's among those guys, and then Jock Peterson has 21. While Ronald Butler of the Miami Marlins is a guy who has 20 home runs, and he is an incredible player for the Miami Marlins. He is second in stolen bases as well in the National League, and if you look at his ratings, he's one of those extremely rare, weird, the show-generated players who is a lefty and can actually play catcher. He doesn't actually catch for the Marlins, though. It's just that's there in a secondary positions. He plays left field every day for them. He can hit for power. He's got good plate skills. He's a solid defender in the outfield. He's very fast, and he is still only 23 years old. So Ronald Butler, definitely by far their best player. Brian Anderson is good too, but Ronald Butler is their guy. And there's also another guy in this franchise who's been out there doing his thing throughout the entire duration of, and that is Jairo Munoz of the St. Louis Cardinals. He currently leads the National League in batting average, so he's at the top of the batting title race right now, and he's also second in OPS with 1,000+ OPS. He's only behind Juan Soto, who we know how insane Juan Soto is in this game. And Munoz has been incredible for the Cardinals for the entire duration of this franchise. 800+ OPS for the first 3 seasons, and then the last 2, he's at an 1,000+ OPS. So, very good player. His ratings are pretty great. the most notably his 96 contact versus right-handed pitching, and he's also a free agent at season's end. So it'll be interesting to see if they bring him back, a struggling team like the Cardinals, or if they even try to trade him at the deadline, or what's going to happen with him. And then if we take a look at the National League WAR leaders among batters, you've got Joey Bart and Manny Margot, who both have an even 4 WAR. Bart is actually the highest among National League catchers. And now the team that's competing with us in this National League West is obviously the Padres. We showed that Machado, Franmil, and Renfroe have all been insane for them offensively, but their 1, 2, 3 starters that all made the All-Star game are pretty big reason why they've been so good. Chris Paddock, Mackenzie Gore, and Dinelson Lamet, they are all the top half of WAR among pitchers in the National League, so Padres, they have a pretty stacked team, and I'm quite sure that they still have like the top half of the top prospects throughout the minor leagues as well. So this is a team that's just not going to go away for quite a while. It's also worth mentioning that Tyler Austin, our former first baseman, is now the Rays All-Star first baseman, and he's second in the American League with 24 home runs. He really just hits a lot of home runs, doesn't really do anything else, doesn't hit for average, doesn't get on base a lot. He just hits a lot of home runs, and if I had to guess, if I looked at his stats deeper, it would probably be because he just can't hit against righties. And now I want to do a little bit of a check-in on the minor leagues, only on 2 guys though, the first one being Reynel Delgado, who is yet another player who is going to be out for a while in the minor leagues. He has a broken ankle, he is out for 6+ months, and that is one of those injuries that could possibly be a career ender in this game. It just pretty much randomizes it, I'm pretty sure, but I really hope that that's not the case and he does come back for next season, because he is still only 22 years old. He is a switch-hitting infielder, and he could be a pretty solid player for us at the major league level someday, so Reynel Delgado, please do not retire. And then the other guy I want to go over is Ryan Hacker, our AA catcher. He is a very interesting prospect. He is the leadoff hitter in AA as a catcher. He has a slash line of 323, 427, and 417. That's an 845 OPS, which leads the Richmond Flying Squirrels, and he needs to work on ripping some more doubles. He doesn't have the greatest power, so he just needs to be able to work those gaps and bump that slugging percentage up, because a OBP that's above your slugging percentage is generally not good. For the slugging percentage, that is. If you have an OBP above your slugging percentage, that means you are walking quite a lot. So he is a guy who gets on base. He's just really only hitting singles and walking. And I am planning on actually giving him some reps at third base and first base down in AA and AAA once he eventually gets called up, because that would possibly open up some more spots for his future in the organization. I feel like he's able to play those positions, because ideally his future in the organization is that he is Joey Bart's backup, plus the backup corner infielder, because backup catchers in the National League do not get much playing time at all in the sim. Like Chase Numata at the All-Star break has like 50 ABs or something like that. Like, they just do not get playing time. And I feel like Ryan Hacker is too good of a player to just not get playing time, so I would like to maximize his ability to play different positions at the major league level once he gets there. And if you're going to have a guy work on playing different positions, you want to have him work on that in the minor leagues. We also made a couple roster moves, the first one being Tyler Beede has been sent back down to AAA Sacramento, where Sean Anderson, who has been solid in their rotation, I should say, all year long, has been called up to be the long reliever spot, and then Jason Tupman has been sent down to AAA, and TJ Trejo, who is striking out a lot of batters, not walking anyone in AAA, has been called back up to the big league. So hopefully he's able to figure out his issues and be good again in the bullpen for us. And that pretty much wraps things up here for this edition of the San Francisco Giants franchise. The next episode you see will be the trade deadline episode. So we'll have one game shown before the trade deadline, then I'll be showing what goes down at the trade deadline, and then we'll have 2 games in August after the trade deadline. So like I said, that wraps things up for this episode. I've been your host, Jerseyborn, and I am saying, how about Jock and Vladi last night, right?